So, Bi'ur Mishnah Vav, the explanation of Mishnah Vav. Hagabaim, Govei Misim, IRS. The IRS used to come into your house and says, hey, where's the money that needs to go to the king? Mitam Malchut, this is from the king. They come from the king. Vehem Amei Haaretz. And they are, in other words, they're not learned people. So they come into the Kohen's house in Yerushalayim and they touch everything. Says, hey, let me see your storage house. How many wines you have over there? How many discs you have over there? They're going to touch the wine, that's right. You don't trustworthy. What happens? Shenichnesu letoch habayit, that they came into the house, litol mishkon alamas. Why are they coming into the house? They don't have permission. He says, I'll tell you why, because you didn't pay them the amount time. They come to take your TV. They come to take something away. So exactly. When you pay us, you got to get your possessions back. Yeah, one of the things. וכן הגנבים שהחזירו את הכלים, and also a thief that did tshuva, and he returned you back the vessels. שגנבו כלי חרס, that they stole some wine. ועשו תשובה והחזירו לבעלים. 2 days later they come to look, I'm sorry, I didn't know where, here's your vessel back. נאמנים לומר לא נגענו. So they're trustworthy to say we didn't touch it. If they say, yeah. Say, did you touch this? You didn't touch? You can trust them. Yeah, you can trust them. כלומר, שהגבאים נאמנים לומר שלא נגעו, אלא בכלים שנטלו כמשכון. He says, we only touched your TV. We didn't touch the food. We only touch this, you trust them. ונמצא שאר כלים טהורים. So the only thing that is impure is the thing that they touched, not other things. וכן הגנבים נאמנים לומר על הכלים שהחזירום, and what about the thieves? How can they say we didn't touch? He says, they can't say they didn't touch the vessel, but they can say we didn't touch the food inside. Yeah, the kli cheres protects on the purity of the inside. They says, we didn't take anything. Since you trust him, he's giving you back. He did tshuva, he's not going to lie to you now. שלא נגעו בתוכם, והרי הם טהורים, and they're pure. לפי שכלי חרס אינם מטמאים מגבם. Like we learned, the vessels of clay are only impure from the outside, not from the inside. יש מפרשים, there are those who explains, שנאמנים לקודש אבל לא לתרומה. Again, we only trust him because it was taboo.
נאמנים לקודש and לא לתרומה. You hear what you say?
Yes.
קודש is higher than truma.
That's right.
So how could it be
because of that. Because in their mind you know that I'll give you an example from today's day and age. You go to a Sephardic shopkeeper, right? To a Sephardic shopkeeper. And you tell him, is this meat pig? He's never going to feed you pig. There's no chance he's not going to feed you pig. But if the shchita is 100% kosher, that I don't know about. That I don't know about. If the shchita is 100% kosher, he might lie.
I see.
But the pig, he's never going to give you pig. Even though pig is more strict, he's not going to lie on pig. The same logic. He would lie if this is kosher or not, because in his mind this is not important. Kosher, not kosher. Come on, everything is. He doesn't understand, so he thinks this is not a big deal. So the same thing over here. In their mind, sacrifices was like pig. We don't touch it. But truma is we can play around with it. Have that in mind.
Yeah, but if it's good for the sacrifice, if it's good for.
Why do you trust him? But you
have to have good for truma.
But you see in your mind you trust him for pig. Because he will never feed you pig, but he will feed you non-kosher meat.
Not when he tells you it's good for kodesh. That is not going to do.
That's right. But if he tells you this is good for truma.
For truma, אבל here I have a problem. שנאמנים לקודש, אבל לא לתרומה. קשה לי להבין את זה.
Because if you have truma in your shop, and they tell you this is good truma, you don't trust him. You don't trust him. But if he tells you this is kodesh for zeh, then you do trust him. But if he tells you this is truma, you don't. For example, you come into the shop of the shopkeeper. He tells you this is not pig. You can eat it, no pig for the, but you don't know if it's kosher.
Why?
You don't know if it's kosher.
I don't know the shchita. That I understand.
Yeah,
So, but here, when you do for Kodesh,
now, if it tells you for Kodesh, you can rely on him.
you can. It says, שנאמנים לקודש, אבל לא לתרומה.
That's right. So if he tells you this is Kodesh, you rely on him. But if he tells you this is Truma, you don't rely. In other words, he tells you this meat is...
How can it be good for Kodesh and not for Truma?
Because he will never lie on Kodesh.
אבל all the things that need for Truma need in Kodesh.
No.
You can't do any Kodesh.
If the guy tells you this is Kodesh, you can rely on it also for Truma.
Oh.
But if he tells you this is Truma, you don't rely on him.
So how do you explain this שנאמנים לקודש אבל לא לתרומה?
If the guy says this is in his if you have truma in your house, yeah, and he touched it and he touched the truma and he tells you I didn't touch it, you don't trust him.
You don't trust him.
Because you don't because he would lie on truma because he doesn't realize it's important.
Right.
So the thief, if it's truma inside the cup, he will tell you I didn't touch it and he did touch it.
Right.
But
Don't rely on him.
but if it was Kodesh in the thing, then you can rely on him. He's not going to lie on Kodesh. He's only going to lie on Truma because in his mind, Truma is not so important.
No, that part I understand.
So it's good.
Just what I don't understand, if something is good for Kodesh, you say, oh, that's for Kodesh, it's a cow, it's good, it's not a tummy. How can it not be good for sacrifice?
Kodesh is sacrifice.
For Truma. How if something is good for Kodashim can it be defined for Truma? If I tell you this is good for Kodashim,
I can rely on it.
you can rely on this for Truma, no? Or no?
I can rely on it also for Truma. But if he tells me this is Truma, I cannot rely on it.
You cannot rely for Kodashim because Kodashim is higher. And that's my problem, that it say here. שנאמנים לקודש, אבל לא לתרומה. Which Truma is a lower thing.
That's right. If the guy comes over to you, again,
But if it's good for a high level, how come
not the object. This whole story applies in the case of Kodashim. But if the story comes to in the case of Truma, then it's not reliable. That's how you read it. Okay, again, if the story happens with Kodashim,
then
you can rely on him because he's never going to rely on Kodashim. But if the whole story that we talked about happened with Truma, then you know he's not in Truma. He's shaky. That's right. He for
sure is not going to be.
That's right. אבל לא לתרומה. ומשנתנו מסופה ללמד בעניין חומר בתרומה. And our Mishnah comes to teach you. So over here, Truma comes up that is more strict than Kodashim. Okay. ויש מפרשים, there are those who says, שאלו נאמנים אף לתרומה. There are some phrases that says, if you trust them for Kodesh, you can trust, even if it's Truma, when it comes to the IRS, and it comes to the thief, you will trust them. In other cases, you wouldn't trust them. But the thief and the IRS guy, you can trust them also for Truma. They don't have an agenda to lie. They're not selling, they're not getting anything out of it. Yeah. ובירושלים, but if it comes to ירושלים, נאמנים על הקודש. ובירושלים, בברייתא, what do you mean בירושלים נאמנים על הקודש? Obviously, בירושלים נאמנים על הקודש. בברייתא בגמרא מבואר, in the ברייתא בגמרא it explained, שנאמנים עמי הארץ בירושלים על כל כלי חרס. That the vessel makers in Yerushalayim itself, not from Modi'in to Yerushalayim, in Yerushalayim itself, the walls of Yerushalayim, anybody you can trust on Kodesh. Not just those who come to the zone, everybody is there. Ben gdolim, ben ktanim, whether it is an adult, whether it is a child even. If a child tells you, usually a child is not trustworthy. Ah, you sure? Maybe. Yeah, you're right, it is klei cheres. It is klei cheres. What's the difference between klei cheres, gdolim, uktanim? Because one is commercial It's a lot of money, and one is just for use and break. It's for 2 seconds. Okay. שכן במשנה ה', because in Mishnah ה', שנינו שמן המודיעין ולפנים, we said that for מודיעין and inwards, נאמנים עמי הארץ על כלי חרס קטנים בלבד. The עמי הארץ are only trustworthy on small plates. ובא משנתנו ללמד, and comes to teach us that in ירושלים עצמה, in ירושלים itself, נאמנים אף על כלי חרס גדולים. We rely them also when they make commercial pots. לפי שאין עושים כבשונות בירושלים. Because why? Because again, we don't make vessels in ירושלים itself. ואין כלי חרס מצויים בהרבה, and we don't have vessels in it. Because everybody is breaking them constantly. וכיוון שהיה צורך במקדש גם בכלי חרס גדולים, and since the temple also was needed big vessels, הילקח לא גזרו שם חכמים עליהם. The decree wasn't on the big vessels in ירושלים because it was necessary for the temple. אבל לתרומה, but for תרומה, שאינם צריכים לכלים הרבה, that you don't need a lot of vessels for it because you don't have to break them afterwards, אינם נאמנים, then they're not trustworthy. So they made a decree only on the
big vessels.
Yeah, וכבר ביאנו שמשום חומרת הקודש, and we already explained, because it was in their minds, holidays, sacrifices, עמי הארץ נזהרים ואינם משקרים. They would never lie on the sacrifices. מה שאין כן בתרומה שמקילים בטהרת. התרומה, it says, we wish it was anyway, we don't believe in it so much. So they were very lenient. ובשעת הרגל, what about the time that everybody goes to ירושלים? The time of the רגל, שהכל מתארים עצמם ועולים לרגל, where everybody is pure, נאמנים עמי הארץ בירושלים אף על התרומה. Then everybody is trustworthy, even on the תרומה, even עם הארץ, in ירושלים, even on the תרומה. בגמרא סמכו זה על הכתוב, how do we know this? It says, ויאסף כל איש ישראל אל העיר, כאיש אחד חברים. It says, because in the רגל, everybody is a חבר. Everybody we're going to be considered in the level of חבר. קרא מה כתוב בשם אספה כולם חברים. In other words, at the time that everybody is going to ירושלים, everybody is religious. At the time that we not רגל, it's like saying, יום כיפור, everybody is religious. Yeah? So רגל, everybody is religious. ורגל שעת אספה היא, and the רגל it's a time of gathering, ומכאן שאף עמי הארץ תוארים ברגל כמו החברים. And from here, even the עמי הארץ, in the רגל was pure, just like a חבר. Even though he was usually not trustworthy, in the רגל we would trust him.